Lakers, Grizzlies. How are you feeling about this series?
How are you feeling about this series? I feel like anytime we talk about the Grizzlies, we gotta default to you, unless you need me to vamp for a second here. But so I'll give the nutshell and then I'll throw it to you because I love to hear you talk about the Grizzlies. So based on the version of these two teams as they exist right now, I feel like this is kind of a coin flip, which is not how you normally feel in a 2-7 matchup. Just some numbers. The Lakers are 16-7 plus 5.9 net rating since the All-Star break, 14th on offense, second on defense. The Grizzlies are 16-9 plus 4.7, 11th on offense, 8th on defense since the All-Star break. So that's, forget the full season stuff because the Grizzlies had Steven Adams and Brandon and Clark for a while. Like they're a different team right now. You could make the case the Lakers are better today, right now, based on the numbers for the last 2 months, basically. I think these two teams are really close. And to me, I could see that I'm going to say this series is going 7. I won't say who I'm going to pick until the end, but I'm ready for you to say Lakers in like 4 and just enjoy it. But so I've started most of these. I want you to start with your, so let me ask you a question. Who is the most important player in this series in your mind on either team?
Oh man, on either team. I think it's LeBron James, which is stupid, but just like, so the Lakers do get out in transition a ton. No one gets out in transition more than the Grizzlies. So are you as LeBron going to be able to handle playing fast on offense while playing fast on defense? How does your body hold up when you're going up against Dillon Brooks? And hey, this is one of my concerns for the series. You mentioned what the Lakers defense has been. That absolutely, and they have just monsters. Jared Vanderbilt now can defend from the point of attack. This team is not built to defend both Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. Who's your primary defender for Ja Morant? And if it's not going to be Anthony Davis, if it's Jared Vanderbilt, if he's on Desmond Bane or Ja Morant, because those are the two guys you worry about the most, you probably have an issue. And so you have Dennis Schroeder, Troy Brown Jr., Austin Reeves. They've been more inclined to. Dennis Schroeder spends a lot of time on tough assignments just by virtue of his position.
I think it'll be Schroeder.
By virtue of his position. But you still have that second guy as a trickle down. Are you just throwing Vanderbilt on that? Schroeder's not going to be on the court for 38 minutes a game. And if he is, holy shit. So is LeBron just going to be a little bit more exhausted on defense? And if you try and stick him on, Xavier Tillman, how many minutes, or Santi Aldama, what is that actually doing for him? Is he going to have to go up against Jaren Jackson Jr. at some points? Is he going to have to go up against a Desmond Bane? I don't know. I'm not saying that's my least concern about what's LeBron doing on defense, but the Lakers defense as a whole, I don't think they're built to defend both Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, because those two can, especially Desmond Bane, can subsist operating from the perimeter. And so even if AD is able to just lock down the paint and you have Jared Vanderbilt chasing around one of them, I just don't know if you're built to stop them. I will also say, I don't know how many Luke Kennard minutes they can get away with. He really did help Memphis's half-court offense. The Grizzlies are 10th in three-point attempt rate since the trade deadline, and their half-court offense is 11th, while they rank in the bottom 5 of offensive rebounding percentage because they didn't have Brandon Clark or Steven Adams. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is Luke Kennard opens things up. Dillon Brooks has been hitting threes. I don't expect that to continue. But you also have Jaren Jackson Jr. You talked about him as a most improved player candidate because of his offense, not just for what he does on defense. And then Desmond Bane was 3rd, I think, on my most improved player ballot. So their half-court offense might be better built to go after the Lakers than a lot of people who are concerned about Memphis's half-court offense, where I feel like a lot of the thoughts were preconceived notions prior to the trade deadline. And look, a lot of that half-court offense success came without Ja Morant as well. And so now you're more at full strength. I feel better about the Grizzlies in this series than I thought, in part because the Lakers feel really good at making you lose faith in them just when you might gain it. And whatever they did against the Timberwolves in the playing game was, yes, they won. It was a perfect example. They didn't have Jaden McDaniels. They didn't have Rudy Gobert. You still made your offense look like a fucking slog during that game. And they have their own shooting variants to contend with. I will say they've been middle of the road, like around 15th or so in catch and shoot efficiency and pull up efficiency. That doesn't make you feel all that, since the trade deadline, that doesn't make you feel all that good against this Grizzlies defense.
Yeah, I think this is a series that at the outset of game 1, I'm going to feel better about the Lakers' talent and schemes and whatever. I'm not convinced that LeBron and Davis will be able to hold up over what I think will be a long and difficult series. And so I'm weighing that against the Grizzlies are out of options if Jaren Jackson Jr. is not on the floor, I think, specifically defensively. And his foul problems, while improved, are still real. And he is going to be tasked with serious work in this series because he's going to have to deal with Anthony Davis, because he probably will even see time on LeBron James. So I think the combination of those two things are just, they introduce so much variability into this series, because if Davis misses a game, well, then I don't see how the Lakers win a game. If Jackson gets 3 fouls in the first quarter, like, that's just not a game Memphis can win, I don't think, because they lose their only big guy that can score. They lose just the absolute key to their defense. And they're so thin behind Jackson. I mean, Xavier Tillman is going to play a fair amount. Santi Aldama, I think we both like him offensively. I just don't think, you just can't do much if he is in a significant defensive role, especially protecting the rim against size, against bulk, against steamroll drives from LeBron, like that kind of stuff. So if I'm the Lakers, at least at the outset of the series, I think there's real ways for them to specifically involve Jackson in every possible action, which you wouldn't normally do against a really great defender, whether that's Davis posting up, which, almost never happens. However it needs to, Davis getting on the offensive boards a ton, because Memphis, you mentioned their offensive rebounding sucks. They're not good on the defensive glass either. They're 21st in defensive rebound rate since the All-Star break. So I think the Lakers can really pound him in there, maybe pick up a couple fouls on Jackson that way. So I really like the Lakers at the beginning of this series. And if you told me that James and Davis would stay healthy and not wear down and not get tired and or get hurt, then I would pick the Lakers. But because I have so many concerns about the lack of front court depth for Memphis, I just don't think it's likely that James and Davis both make it all the way through this unscathed. So I know that's kind of a cop-out because injuries affect every series, but it is a little different talking about this particular Lakers team with a 38-year-old, more mileage than anybody ever, being so critical, and a guy who you think he's dead every time he falls down and has to leave the floor. So it's a little cop-outy, but not totally. I feel okay standing on that as a big issue. What do you think? What do you think Ja Morant is going to do in this series? Like, I obviously, because I feel like we haven't talked about Ja Morant, the basketball player, all that much the last half of this season, and specifically looking at this playoff series, because isn't there a scenario where the Lakers can't stay in front of him and just, he's too athletic for even a defense as good as Los Angeles is?
In transition, yes. When you look at sort of, if they're in the half court, I do wonder if he'll struggle to, get into the paint, into floater range, into the paint. And even if he gets there, you're going to have to deal with Anthony Davis or Jared Vanderbilt, presumably. And so the Lakers have had, since the trade deadline, the 5th best defense on short mid-range jumpers. They're around the top 10 in opponent field goal percentage allowed at the rim. And Ja Morant, in the games that he played after the trade deadline, was sub 23% from 3, and his shooting splits have actually been all over the place this season, even his free throw shooting. And so I could see him brutalizing them. I could also see this being not a great Ja Morant series, and it coming down to, does Memphis have enough offensive counters to survive?
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, you're talking about transition versus half court. You mentioned both these teams run a ton and are very good at it. I think it's interesting to note that Memphis half court offense has actually been better than the Lakers after the break. It's not like any crazy, they're 14th.
That doesn't shock me at all, actually.
The Memphis is 14th. The Lakers are 20th. So it's interesting. This maybe plays into my concerns about the Lakers' best players holding up, is if this is just an up and down series where both teams are trying as hard as possible to up the pace and run because that's just what they're good at and where they are most effective, I feel like that makes it harder for LeBron and Davis to kind of hold up, because Memphis is thin, but all their best players, generally speaking, are young, are athletic, and Jackson's never going to tired because he plays 26 minutes a game. So, there's real ways for, if this turns into a transition series, for Memphis to be successful. And in the half court, I think actually there's ways for Memphis to be more successful. So I feel like I'm tipping my pick, but do you have anything else to add? Any other X factors or points to get to?
Yeah, is that we've seen so little of the Lakers' big three, and like we haven't really talked about D'Angelo Russell. It's clear that Darvin Ham doesn't necessarily trust him or Malik Beasley,
Yeah.
based on how he's run some of his rotations, and so how he plays lineups could be a big deal. But the Lakers in the time, it's fewer than 300 possessions, so they have a plus 23.4 net rating when LeBron, D'Angelo Russell, and AD are on the court together, and like half of those possessions have come with the starting lineup where it's Jared Vanderbilt and Austin Reeves, and that's been an absolute killer. And if you worry about part of the reason why I would argue LA's half court offense was dog shit, post break, LeBron misses time, D'Angelo Russell misses time. But the half court offense has actually only been about league average when LeBron, AD, and Russell play together. Again, there's not a huge sample size there, but that is sort of the problem, is like we don't have enough information about the Lakers and their new pieces all playing together with LeBron. And I also, Rob Pelinka feels like he's getting too much credit for how he remade the roster. I guess getting rid of Russ helps, but like when a lot of the players that came over in a trade, even Jared Vanderbilt, like not necessarily being on the floor in crunch time, I'm very curious to see how Darvin Ham runs some of his rotations in this series, because that's going to be critical. And if you have anything to add to that, but my other question for you was for each side, remove the top three players from the equation. Who are the most important like players for or like non-marquee names for each side of this matchup?
Yeah, so to hit the rotation thing real quick, I don't think this is a D'Angelo Russell series because I don't know where you can put him on defense, because you can't have him guard Morant, you can't have him guard Bane, you can't hide him on Dylan Brooks because he'll just be too physical and get offensive rebounds.
That's the answer, though. I guess you try and hide him on Aldama or Tillman, and even Aldama is going to put the ball on the floor against D'Angelo Russell if he needs to.
Yeah, I just don't. And conversely, I do think so. Someone like Luke Kennard, who you might be a little worried about in a playoff series because of his defense, I think you probably can get away with playing him against the Lakers, because it's easier to do that than even someone like Beasley, who's not a good defender. I think the Lakers just don't. I think it's the Grizzlies 1, 2, and 3. I think, which is where you'd put those guys, are kind of just too quick, too athletic, too physical, like that. There's just, it's easier for Memphis to play its one way guys, I think. Maybe that'll change, but that's how I view it right now. So outside of, say, Jackson, Bane, and Morant, and then AD, LeBron, and is Russell the guy you're saying is the Lakers' third guy?
I mean, if you want to count him among like the non-stars and say it's him, then sure.
I just don't think it's a series for him. So for Memphis, I guess it's probably Brooks, just because he's probably going to have to spend time on LeBron. He's probably going to have to spend time, I don't know, guarding whoever Morant should be guarding. So maybe that's like Austin Reeves, or maybe that's Schroeder, maybe that's Russell. So he's going to matter. If he doesn't shoot them out of games and, keeps things under control, like physicality wise, I think he's a big guy to focus on. The Lakers are harder. I think I want to say Reeves, just because he's really good and, may have to be the guy that scales up, assuming Brooks is not on him. He may be the guy that just has a good matchup. But if Bane is on him, I don't know if that's a huge advantage. Do you have different guys in that regard?
I do. So Dylan Brooks is the right answer for Memphis, but I also kind of think it's Santi Aldama. Maybe it's Tyus Jones, because imagine him going up against some of the Lakers starter light units in the way that he has played this season. But if I'm assuming Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be in foul trouble in at least 2 or 3 of these games. Mm-hmm. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on Aldama. The Grizzlies actually have a defensive rating in the 73rd percentile when Adams, Clark, and Jackson are all off the floor. Some of that is some lucky opponent shooting from 3. Opponents are only shooting 35% from 3, but like it's not 32% or 29% from 3. So they're going to need him, I think, defensively more. And like he can move around and stuff. Maybe it's Xavier Tillman by default in that scenario, but I think it's for this series, if you want to kind of preserve the offensive versatility, I'd listen to Luke Kennard too. Can he stay on the floor defensively? For the Lakers, I think it's Malik Beasley, because can he make enough of his threes and then be okay enough on defense to stay on the floor? Because he leads the Lakers in 3-point attempts per 36 minutes, and they still just need that volume. There's no one else on this roster who's just going to come in and let it fly like that. Like, Troy Brown Jr. shooting 40+% from 3 since the trade deadline. Great. Coming on 4 attempts per game and like not even 5 per 36, I don't think, or whatever it is. And so I think to put pressure on Memphis's defense, like they're probably going to be better at cutting off your dribble penetration and maybe your foul stuff, or though maybe not. Maybe they'll foul a ton. That you're going to need to knock down some tough shots from the perimeter. And D'Angelo Russell, that could be him. It could be LeBron, but I also think you need Malik Beasley to be in that role probably more than any other non-marquee name on the Lakers.
Yeah, and that may be, I didn't think it was going to be much of a series for Russell and Beasley, but it may be the case that both of these teams trust their backline defenses so much that you are willing to just put guys out there that are not going to guard because you need to, what you're saying, you need to put pressure on the defense. So yeah, it could be a series where, a lot of one-way offensive guys actually do play because the high-end defenders on both teams are so good.
I don't view this as a Rui Hachimura series. I'll say that much. And I feel like the Lakers kind of they're just trying to make Rui Hachimura happen a lot of the time. And I don't necessarily watching him on wide open threes is like kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
For me.
Stop trying to make, no, I mean, yeah, I just don't know what key advantage he would give you over this particular Memphis team. I think Brooks on him is just, well, we're done here now, basically.
Lakers Grizzlies prediction.
I'm going to go Grizzlies in 7. Keeping in mind all I said up front about like how Jackson, LeBron, and Davis are all just like, I don't know how much all of them are going to play or how effective they'll be. So I had to cop out and go 7 and take the higher seed.
This might surprise you. I'm going Grizzlies in 5.
Oh, I'm very surprised.
I don't think the Lakers
reason.
Unless you think that the Lakers are going to play up to the level of their opponent and the stuff we've seen against, what was that when they went against like the G League team that Phoenix doesn't actually have, but they went up against them and they turned that into a chore. The Timberwolves game where they made their offense even look like a chore against, yes. And like some of the Timberwolves played really well in that one, but you got a terrible game from Anthony Edwards, who was clearly injured, and you still just couldn't like really pull away. I don't trust them, and I don't trust their rotations. And I think even if their best built rotation has like 6 guys that you're just like, okay, like this sort of makes sense. Where are we going from here? And I think the Grizzlies right now, they're still deeper. And I know that Zach Lowe's been big on, well, how many playoff level trustworthy players do you have? And he's always said like Memphis has like 4 or 5. They still have 4 in Brooks, Bane, Jackson, and Morant. That's actually a lot when you look at in comparison to Lakers who have LeBron, AD, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And clearly the Lakers don't even trust him. Like he's going to pose
like
limitations offensively. And I think I trust some of the development we've seen just because of Jackson and Bane. I trust the Grizzlies half-court offense a bit more. I wouldn't pick them against a bunch of other teams. I thought I was going to go into this one like Lakers in 7 or something. I can't talk myself into it. Maybe I'm being there's an overcorrection there, but this feels like a series where unless it's Jaren Jackson Jr. fouls out twice or there's like 3 games where he can't even crack 25 minutes, this just feels like it's going to be Grizzlies in a landslide to me.
Yeah. Blink twice if some hostile Memphis fans have you held hostage right now and they're making you say this.